Hi, and welcome to Lesson Design with Gina Shulse, Part 3, Less is More. No more death by bullet points. Now, if you have been watching my other two videos and you watched the first video and I promised you that every video would be 3 to 5 minutes long, you know now that I am a liar and I have lied and I am a big, big liar. Okay? Hopefully this one will not be much more than about 5 minutes long. Okay. But this is a really important thing that I have been thinking about quite a bit this year at teaching, especially advanced students with the English 1 students. I've really tried to think, what can I do to help my students who are already advanced to grow? So that's what we're going to talk about in this lesson design. Our essential question: how do I get my students involved in the lesson? Today I'm thinking about another way to engage my students and differentiate instruction so that I have more dynamic, interesting discussions in class, and I can even grow my advanced students. I'll know I got it if I can change the way I create PowerPoints to reduce the bullet points and increase discussion and activity. So let's start. First of all, the fewer bullet points you have on a slide, the more opportunity you have to engage your students. I remember when I was particularly in college thinking this. A teacher would put a PowerPoint up on the board and they would read the PowerPoint to us. And I remember thinking how condescending it was for them to think that I am a college student who cannot read. They added nothing to the lesson. They added nothing to their bullet points. And I get why they do it, because I am a teacher now too. That, you want to have what's on the screen, because if it's not on the screen, you might forget it. And that's a huge fear for many teachers, is that we're going to forget something important. But I want to challenge you to think about the fact that the less you have on the screen, the fewer bullet points you have on a slide, the more opportunity you have to engage your students. And it shows that you are not underestimating them, that you expect them to rise to what you are offering. Okay? And believe it or not, many times they can make those inferences and they can get those things that you didn't put on the screen and you may have even forgotten to say, and they'll get it. So think about first questions. I have gotten to where when I'm looking at a lesson, I like to go through at anywhere where there's a lot of bullet points and say, how could I replace all of this blurb, this wall of text, with a question? How could I get my students to know this material without having to read all that material to them? I mean, usually if I can come up with 1 or 2 questions and we can have a discussion, I might put that blurb in the notes of my PowerPoint and just have that PowerPoint open when I'm teaching the class, so that I know that I want to make sure that the kids get this information. But take it off the screen. Give them a question. Let them talk about it. The more engaged they are, the more they're going to talk, the easier it's going to be for them to remember. Next step is show, don't tell. This is a common phrase that we use in writing: show, don't tell. It means to be more descriptive, use stronger verbs, show us what a character is doing rather than just telling us what they are. Okay. For example, I always use this example with my students. How could I show my reader that my character is an old man and he's ill? Rather than saying, this character is an old man and he's ill. And then my students will come in and they'll start showing me. They'll say he walked with a cane. He hobbled through the door. He gasped for breath. All of these things might show me, rather than tell me, that it's an old man and he's ill. Okay. When we're talking about lesson design, we need to think about, how are we showing our students? How are we modeling for our students, rather than how are we telling them? What are we telling them? So show me. I'm your student. Show me how to do the thing. Don't just tell me. Let me practice it. Let me try to do it. Don't just tell me how to do it. Show me an image. Ask me a question. But don't just tell me what you know. Let me try to see if I can get there. Okay? Let me practice making inferences. If you're not an English teacher, if you're teaching social studies or math or science, let your students practice making inferences with what you present them as well. Let me engage with your lesson. The less you have on the whiteboard, the more students have in terms of opportunity to engage with what you're teaching them. And another thing, little trick that I think Crystal taught me actually in a pre-conference once, a couple of years ago, last year or a couple of years ago. She asked me, what are your non-negotiables? Because I was worried about time. And I know that a lot of teachers worry about time, especially as they're planning for next year. I was really worried about time, and I really wanted to make sure that I got in all of the important stuff in my lesson. And so when I was talking with Crystal about it, I said, this is my concern about this lesson. This is what I want to accomplish. And she asked me, she said, well, what are your non-negotiables? So what I'm going to ask you, and that was a game changer conversation for me, because it made me look at my lesson design a little bit differently. Less is more. Think about what you absolutely have to accomplish with your students in the time frame that you have. And then go back and think, what can I cut in order to make that one non-negotiable really worthwhile for my students? Because I guarantee doing one thing and doing it really well with your students is going to make a much more lasting impact in terms of growth than doing a whole lot of different things and doing it poorly. Okay? And the time frame that we have is short with our students. So make sure that what they are doing in the classroom is really worthwhile. And of course, I talked about this in the last video. I'm going to talk about it again. A picture is worth 1,000 words. It really is. Put more pictures in your slides and fewer words. Our brains light up when we see pictures. Our memories have more connections when we see pictures to go along with the words. Our engagement is stimulated with images. If there's a cool picture on the screen and maybe one or two words, I'm really curious what this teacher is going to do with it. Okay, so our engagement is stimulated and it becomes a conversation point. Allow your students to talk in class. Less is more. They will grow. That's it. Thank you all for taking the time to watch my lesson design videos. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to help you with your lesson design. I'm so tempted to say click like or subscribe if you really liked this video, but I know that's not how it works here. But really, if you have questions, I would love to help you. And I hope that this helps you in your lesson planning for next year.